right, y'all. So I always tell y'all foundation is key. Learning to create a good, smooth foundation is going to help you a lot with retaining clients and as well as speeding up your service as well. So here we're going to go in with your pH Plus dehydrator. I know this is a fake hand, but I just kind of want to show y'all what steps you would take before you apply the actual product. The dehydrator is going to strip the nail of its natural oils without disrupting that pH balance. So yeah, you can use acetone and alcohol. However, over time that could, make your client's nails brittle and thin, and you just want to make sure you have a dehydrator that actually has a pH balancer in it to keep those pH levels balanced. And then of course your primer, y'all. The primer is 2-sided sticky tape. You do not want to miss that. You can dip out on the pH Plus if you want to dehydrate or whatever, but the primer, that is needed. That is your 2-sided sticky tape. That is what's going to really intertwine that product with your nail plate, and give you good longevity. So as a beginner, there are zones. We have zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Zone 1 is going to be where the natural nail and the nail tip meet. Zone 2 is going to be where you start to build your apex. And then zone 3 is going to be your cuticle area. As a beginner, it's good to have guides. It helps to have guides. Of course, you do however you can learn. But if this is a good baseline to learn from. Every bead that you apply to these zones should transition evenly and smoothly into one another. So when you're creating this, making sure that your foundation is smoothly transitioning into one another. Okay? Hope that makes sense. All right, so first we're going to take our first bead, which is going to be like a medium bead. We just want to build the nail tip up. We want to thicken that nail tip. So when we lay that bead, we're going to spread it from side to side on the nail tip to be sure to cover the whole nail tip, and we're going to bring it down the nail. We're going to be sure to point our finger down to let gravity do its job, and we're going to use the pat and drag method. Okay, we're not going to go in and start swiping. We're going to pat and drag it down the nail to just give it that really nice thickness, keep that acrylic onto the nail. And then we're going to be sure to pat in our sides. It's very important to keep that shape of the nail. It really eliminates a lot of filing that you will have to do at the end if you just keep the shape that you created with the nail tip as well. So here we are going to go ahead and make sure we're making it nice and smooth while also tucking in those sides. Tuck, tuck, tuck. I cannot say that enough. It is going to help you. Everything should be in the middle of that nail, not drooping off on the sides. Of course, as a beginner, you will do that. It will happen, and you're just going to have to use a file and take care of it. But again, if you tuck in those sides while you're doing the nail, while the product is still movable, then it's going to eliminate a lot of filing at the end, and it's going to be very helpful with your time. And then also, too, your client will go be looking crazy like, oh my God, does she know what she's doing? Nah. So we have a really nice foundation here, nice coverage for that nail tip. Now we're going to go in with our second bead in our second zone, which is our apex bead, I guess you'll say. It's going to help build our apex. So we're going to get pretty much like a medium to large type of bead, depending on the length of the nail. And then you're going to lay that bead onto the nail. So when you lay it onto the nail, you want to be sure that you set it there. Let your brush sit there for a moment, because that's where we're going to build that apex up. So we don't want to move it around. So we're going to let it sit there. We're going to pat it into place. And once we know that it's sitting there right where we want it, where we want our apex to be, then we're going to lightly swipe it down. Make sure that you're utilizing your monomer to be sure to move that product. You don't want it to polymerize before you can make it down to the nail. Another thing is, the reason why we're swiping and not dragging is because we already got our thickness on the nail tip. We don't need to thicken that nail tip anymore. We just want to swipe that right in transition. Like I told you before, we want to transition it into that first nail with keeping the bulk of that acrylic in the middle to help build our apex. And as you can see, we are tucking in our sides. We are making sure our sides are nice and tucked so that way we have minimum filing at the end. So make sure that's very, very important. Look at that. That's a really good start to our apex. Once we put in our cuticle bead, it's going to help fill that in and give it a really nice looking nail. So when you're applying your cuticle bead, you want to be sure that you apply it just below the cuticle and not all the way up. Good acrylic, nails apply acrylic. Good acrylic self-level. So if you place it right at the cuticle, it's going to flood right on in there. And once it starts flooding, even when you swipe around it and try to get it off, it's still going to be some acrylic there. And we just want to make sure we avoid that. And especially, again, contact dermatitis. We don't want the product to touch the skin. So here we're going to set that bead right below the cuticle area. We're going to let it sit there for a second, let it know what it's about to do. let it know what its job is to do. And then we're gonna tuck around the cuticle, tuck, tuck, tuck. Once you do that, you're gonna start swiping. I like to make this bead a little bit more runnier, so that way I'm able to have time to tuck it into the cuticle really nice and then be able to swipe it. A lot of nail techs take too long at that part, or their bead is just too dry and it starts to get stuck, and that's where you get that big old hump right there where you can't move it. So just be sure that, you know, it'll be a little bit more runnier than your other two beads that you will be, to give yourself some time to work it. And then we're going to go in, make sure our brush is nice and flat, and we're going to go in and clean around our side walls. Be sure to get that acrylic off of the skin. Product will not stick to skin. If it is stuck to the skin, it will lift. Every little spot it will lift, and your client will pick at it, or your client is washing their hands or doing their hair and the oil's getting underneath there, and as it build up, it's going to pop right on off. So look at that. That is a really nice nail, really nice foundation. It's really nice and flush with the cuticle, as well as having a really nice apex. Any imperfections we could take care of with a file. Do not stress yourself by adding a bead here, adding a bead there, adding a bead there. Doing this, you're adding too much, it's gonna make a chunky nail and it's gonna frustrate you. So you wanna make sure that you really make the cuticle area nice and flush, then make that high point with your apex, and then transition down to the tip nice and thin. Right here, I'm going to show you again how you clean up around the cuticle area. Now, typically you want to do this while the acrylic is still wet. I just wanted to show you how you would kind of lean up against the skin. I guess we don't really want to put product on the skin, but just more so that way instead of being on a nail plate, because you don't want to wipe away that acrylic either when you're trying to clean it off. So just make sure it's nice and flat. Go right on in that crease and just get all that product off of the skin, because when it grow out, it's going to look really, really nice and just seamless, and it's gonna look like they barely need to fill. Again, y'all, it's gonna take a lot of practice. Y'all can do this. I'm here to help. Y'all got this.